A very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen, and very welcome to Mentor and yet another live stream. As always, I hope you're doing absolutely fantastic out there, my friends. I see that some of you are already here, and I can see that Edward Cameron has already provided some support in the super chat. Edward, you are a true legend. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. And that brings me to what I always start my live streams with, which is how to ask your questions, because as the number of people starts coming in here, so will the amount of questions start rising. So the way that I'm prioritizing things is I'm prioritizing questions made from the super chat. Obviously, that's people that are supporting with actual money for me to answer the questions. So I will take those first, and then after that, we have messages on the Mentour Aviation app. All right, so people who are sending messages to me via adding @Mentour in the app, they will send those messages correctly to or directly to me, and I'll be able to answer them. And then obviously I will be answering the questions that's coming up here in the chat as well. So guys, I'm hoping you're doing great. I'm hoping that internet will hold up and that we can have a lovely 30-45 minutes or so of talking about aviation in front of us. So, some questions are starting to come up. Right, so how do we land in clouds? Now, this is a question that's coming up surprisingly often, and actually I will be starting to do some more technical videos coming up. I'm hoping that you have already seen the latest video that I did about the flight spoilers and ground spoilers. I hope you like that kind of content, because I am planning to do more of that, as in explaining aircraft systems in an easy to understand way. I'm not going to go in as deep as the manuals are doing. That's up to you when you do your type rating later on. But I am going to explain why they are there. For example, what do flaps do? Why do they look the way they do? How do we use them? When do we configure? Stuff like that is going to come up. There will be videos like that. And also, I will be doing instructional videos. I'll be doing videos on how to actually fly the aircraft in crosswind, what to do in case of an engine failure, how we deal with malfunctions and normal ILSs and stuff. You can already, if you are really interested in seeing this, if you go into the Mentour Aviation app, I have already done some courses in there. You can see how we fly a TCAS resolution advisory, as in how we avoid to crash into each other in case air traffic control has made a fool out of themselves. You can see how we do Cat 3 approaches, and you can see how we set up an aircraft from zero to everything. So if you get the app and you buy those playlists, you can see that already. But there will be more of stuff like that coming up on the channel. Now, how do we actually land in clouds? Well, we have instrumentation to help us with that. So normally we use what's called an ILS, which is an instrument landing system. So there are several radio beacons that first of all guide us in, together with our GPS transmitters. And GPS systems guides us towards that instrument landing system. And once we are close to the runway, as in within 20 nautical miles, or 18 to be exact, we can pick up what's called a localizer, which is a radio beam that tells us how we're doing in relationship to the runway. So if we are right or left of the runway. That when we get a little bit closer, as within 10 nautical miles, we can also arm what's called the glide slope, which is exactly the same, but horizontal as well. So you have both lateral and horizontal guidance, so that we can see both if we're high or low, and if we're left or right of the descent line. And that brings us all the way down into a position where we have to be able to see the runway, which is at our minimum, which is, in case of a Cat 3, it's 50 feet above the runway, so just above the runway threshold, basically. And in case of a normal ILS, it's about 200 feet, okay? So that's how it's built on. We have to see the runway at some point in order to land, unless we have a Cat 3B system where we actually can land in almost zero visibility, but we don't have that on the 737. Cool. Right, so we have some people coming in the super chatter. Philip Stolzenberg, thank you very much. There was no question assigned to that. I'm guessing that you had a question, Philip. And if you did and it didn't work, then can you please go into Facebook and send me a private message there, or send me an email inside of the Mentour Aviation app. If you go to settings and you go to provides feedback, that sends a direct message to me as a direct email. And send that to me, and I promise to answer your question. If you just did this to support, thank you very much. Edward, Thank you very much. Yes, we've just reached 70,000 subscribers on the channel yesterday, which is a fantastic achievement. I have to thank all of you guys for that. It is great to see how the channel is growing. I'm hoping to grow it even more with your help. So all that you can do, guys, about spreading the word of the channel, tell your friends that are interested in aviation that we do these live streams. It's greatly appreciated. And, you know, put the videos, if you see them, put them up on your Facebook feeds or in any groups that you have any knowledge about, maybe, you know, flight sim forums and stuff like that, because it does help the channel a lot, and it's growing more and more, which will enable me to do more cool things. And very soon, guys, I will be doing a video with an aeronautical medical examiner. Okay, I am actually in the process of booking it now. I'm gonna have to go up to Sweden to do it. So I'm going to do some more videos up there as well. But I will be taking all of those questions that you've been asking over the last 2 years about medical stuff, like what kind of glasses can I have? Can I do laser surgery? Can I have ADHD? Can I be, you know, all of those things that have been coming up, they will be asked to this doctor. So there will be a video that will be explaining all of these things to me. And if you think that you have something that you want me to ask, then please send me a message about what that is, okay? I will not be answering myself, but if there's enough of those questions, I will be entering them into the pot of things that I will ask this doctor about. So I hope you like that. Prostate, yeah, that's a good thing. Are pilots involved with disruptive passengers? Ben, you're a little bit ahead here. I am actually planning to do a video of this on disruptive passengers, and I'm planning to film that tomorrow. But I can explain a little bit. Okay, so pilots are not supposed to get involved with disruptive passengers. Not at all. And the reason for that is that the ones that are actually trained to deal with disruptive passengers are the cabin crew. All right, as part of their initial training, they get taught how to deal with disruptive passengers. You know, how to kind of diffuse situations and calm them down. Now, pilots should not get involved for a couple of reasons. When pilots get involved, it tends to become violent, because the reason that pilot gets involved is in order to kind of protect the cabin crew or something like that. And when they do, they can get hurt, both the passengers but the pilots as well. And a hurt pilot does not help anyone. So we are specifically instructed not to get involved in case of a disruptive passenger. We're supposed to stay in the cockpit and do our job, get the aircraft down on the ground, get the police involved, and let the police take care of the disruptive passengers if it is needed. Okay, I will go into more details about this, and I will also show, possibly, we'll see, as a little bit of an example on an upcoming video. So stay tuned this Thursday, because it's either going to be that or another video that I'm preparing. Cool, let's see, more questions here. So there's no more questions coming up in the super chat, so I'll take a few from the Mentour Aviation app. If you haven't gotten that already, by the way, guys, it's completely free to download. And I'm working on there's a new documentary out today. I do a documentary of the day, I call it, but it happens about once a week, where I highlight a documentary that I think that you guys should be watching. And it's a new one up to date, so check it out. Right, so Fox in the Mentour Aviation app. Mentor, I would love to hear your thoughts on being a contractor for an airline. No retirement pension, being fireable at any time the company stops. Yeah, alright, so when I started in the business, being a contract pilot was something that was fairly rare, okay? There was a few contract pilots. They were something to be seen as kind of the oil of the company, as in those were the people that were sent out to a base when people wanted to have vacation in that base, and they were used to kind of oil up the system to make sure that everything worked from a rostering point of view. Now that has radically changed during the last couple of years, and now it's more common that pilots, especially first officers, get employed as contractors to start with. I have nothing really against that as a way of doing it, but it has to be under fair terms and conditions, all right? And you as a contractor, if you are a contractor, have to be aware and have to be paid extra to compensate for those things, to compensate for having to buy your own hotels and your own pension schemes and stuff. So you should be very well paid as a contractor, and also, crucially, you need to know what rules and regulations there are regarding taxes and your pensions and stuff, and you need to treat it like a company would. So you bring in money into a company. The company then buys you pension and all of the stuff needed. So make sure that you can actually do that. And if you can, what is a good thing actually is if you start off as a contractor, you tend to be able to deduct your expenses on the company, which means that your expenses will include things like the type rating. So that is a lot of money. So most first officers, especially in the company that I work for, they start off with a big heap of expenses that they can claim and use, which means that effectively their salary is going to be more or less tax-free for the first couple of years, because they are just claiming back the expenses from the type rating, from all of the hotels they're using, if they're being away from base and stuff like that. So the way it's been working, now I'm not 100% sure about this, but the way that I've understood it to work is that the first 2 or 3 years you almost get your salary tax free by doing this, through obviously making sure that you're following local rules and regulations and everything like that. But then when you stop having any expenses to pull off, well, then it's almost time for command upgrade in some cases, and then the salary jumps a bit. So it works, but you have to be careful. You have to follow the local rules. Make sure that you're involved with your the guy who's handling your company financially, to make sure that you don't trip over anything. It puts a lot of more responsibility on you, but in most cases you won't have a choice. I am employed by the airline myself, so I'm not a contractor, but a lot of my colleagues are. Right, more questions. I see there's people coming in. Brent, Gregory, thank you very much, Brent, for your support. Any advice for someone starting a 4-year university degree with a flight major and a goal of getting a commercial pilot job? Yeah, Brent, I'm guessing from the currency you're using that you are in the US. Have you looked into, first of all, if your university actually has... I know that some of the flight universities in the US, for example, has a reduction in the amount of hours you need in order to become an airline pilot. That's a good thing to check out. I think like Embry-Riddle, for example, and some of the others, you might only need to do 1,000 hours instead of 1,500 in order to be able to apply for the airlines. Check that out. Otherwise, it's a good idea, because in the States, most of the airlines still requires you to have a 4-year degree in order for you to be able to apply for them. So my advice would be just get working, start working on it, make sure that you get good grades, and make sure that you get a good network when you're in there, and use these 4 years to figure out how to achieve those 1,000 or 1,500 hours you will need in order to apply for an airline. Also, potentially look into if there's a possibility to come over to Europe, maybe get an EASA conversion, if you can get a work visa in the European Union, and maybe you'll be able to do that, get it straight out of your university, come over the pond, and start working for a European airline, with minimum hours. That could be a possibility, but of course you do need to convert your licenses, and you do need to get a work visa, just like a European would need a work visa to go to the US. But apart from that, keep your head down, work, and enjoy it. Remember that. Remember to enjoy what you're doing. Remember how fantastic it is that you are able to fly during your school hours, basically. That's the way that I felt when I did the same thing in Sweden. It's absolutely fantastic experience, by the way. The best years of my life so far. Well, almost. It's pretty great right now as well. Right, more questions. I'm getting loads of questions on the Mentour Aviation app here. Right, do a lot of pilots make an extra income through real estate, trading and businesses? Yes, they do, actually. The pilots that you see that drive the most fancy cars and have the biggest houses and the coolest pools and whatever, they tend not to have bought that just using their income from being a pilot. They tend to have a secondary income. And a lot of pilots invested heavily in real estate, especially in the UK and in Ireland. There's been a lot of people buying apartments, buying whole apartment complexes, not with their own money. Obviously, they've managed to borrow it from the bank, but rented it out, taking the money they get from the rental income to buy another house, to buy another apartment, and built up quite a lot of properties. Obviously, that comes with a risk. Anything in life that earns money will come with a risk. But yes, quite a few of the pilots have done that, or have their own side business or something like that provides an extra income. Because this job can provide you with a very, very good lifestyle. All right, you can have a fantastic lifestyle here, but it will not make you kind of like UK footballer rich. Like that won't happen. But you can use the income that you get through this job to build further. That tends to be how people actually become rich at the end. It's when they use whatever spare income they have. So you have the income that you need to have a good life. And then if you're lucky and you're a captain, for example, you might have a little bit extra. Now to use that to invest wisely, it might be in property, it might be in stocks, it might be in something else. Then that can also start providing an income. And when you have several income sources coming in, maybe you're renting out the apartments that you bought, maybe you sell a few, then you can start earning some real money, and that's when you start buying the Ferraris and stuff. Right, so take some more questions from the actual chat here as well. Clearly you have deeply rooted, cowardly, egoistical issues. You should see a doctor for that. What is that? I hope you're not talking about me, True Tech, because I sincerely hope that that's not how people see me. Guys, if you're bickering in the chat, that's not a good thing. Try to focus on what we're doing here now, because that's why I'm sitting here. So don't attack each other in the chat. I am very much against that. You know, I had some issues with that in the chat initially in the Mentour Aviation app as well, which is why I rebuilt the app completely to stop that from happening. I want people to see this as a friendly forum. All right, we help each other out. No matter what experience we have, there are no stupid questions. Everyone is welcome to ask whatever they like, and we all respect that. That's what I do, and that's what I'm hoping that you guys will follow me to do as well. Valerio in the super chat. Do you get paid during the type rating or line training? That depends on the company. Most companies do pay you. As soon as you get employed, you start getting paid. All right. Some companies might delay that a little bit. I think in my company, for example, you don't get paid during the type rating, and you start getting paid once the safety pilot is released on the line training. That tends to happen around 20 sectors or so. You do on average maybe 2 sectors or 4 sectors a day. So, you know, 10 days into line training or something like that. And the amount, I'm not sure. You're gonna have to talk about, you know, that's going to be different between different airlines as well. Right, cool. Does your airline land in Vienna? Vienna, I'm not sure actually, because we change destinations all the time. So I'm not. I think we do, but I'm not sure. I don't. Which is better for rating, Airbus or Boeing? Yeah, so this is a question that I'm answering on almost every one of my live chats, guys, and I'll answer it as well today, obviously, since you're coming in the super chat. You have to be very careful with your ratings, okay? The best type rating that you get is a type rating that is connected to a job. And it doesn't matter if it's Boeing or Airbus. It's the type rating that you get offered as part of a job offer. So hopefully you all get employed by a company that pays for your type rating. That's what we're all hoping for. That's what I am hoping that the airline industry would turn into as the pilot shortage is starting to become acute. But if it comes with a condition, say that you apply for an airline, they accept you, but they say, but you are going to need to pay for your type rating. If that comes with an actual employment offer, so that if you get the type rating, you get through the training, you'll be working with us and that's it, then that's fine. And it doesn't matter if it's Boeing or Airbus, okay? If you don't, and if you're thinking about, if the question is aimed to me as in which type rating should I get by myself, I would advise you to be very, very careful. Okay, and the reason I'm saying that is because most airlines that fly Boeing or Airbus are pretty big airlines. You know, they're pretty respected airlines. They tend to have a very strict policy when it comes to employing people. Okay, and that might include having a restriction on direct entry pilots. Now, the airlines are always a little bit skeptical towards direct entry pilots because they haven't been taught in their standard operating procedures, their way of flying, their way of operating. Okay, which means that they don't take in low-hour type-rated pilots. They only take in experienced type-rated pilots. And that tends to be at least 500 hours. Okay, so if you buy your own type rating and then you don't get any line training as part of that, you just get up with a type rating, you might find yourself in a situation where the airline that you're applying to will not accept the type rating. They will say that we can take you in, But you're going to have to buy the same type rating you already have from us, because that's the only way that they can do it. Their operations manual, their insurance companies, their licensing authority will only let them take in low-hour cadets if they've gone through their type rating, because that has ensured that they have the quality needed in order to start flying a 737 with 200 hours. So that's what I'm saying. Be very careful. Sometimes if you buy a type rating, it might be smarter to buy a type rating on a less common aircraft, on a smaller one like a Saab 340 or a MD-80 or something like that. That's almost unheard of. The reason being that the airlines that are still flying those, they might not have as strict rules when it comes to the experience that the entry-level pilots might have. But that's why I'm saying I'm not recommending people to buy type ratings without them being connected to a job offer, right? I hope that makes it clear. Edward Cameron, thank you very much. Yeah, there was some really horrific days this weekend with the terror attacks in Barcelona. I'm glad to say that no one in my family or even in my my friendship circle was involved or even close to them. However, it just goes to show, guys, how important it is that we take care of each other, and that we look out for each other, and that we respect all of the rules surrounding safety, security. Because you never know when these things will happen, and when they do, what's most important is that we go out, we show love to our fellow human beings, to our fellow, friends, that we don't turn to anger, hatred, which is really easy to do. It's the first thing I saw after this happened was a lot of anti-Muslim, Islam, anti-immigrant stuff coming up on the internet, on my feeds in WhatsApp and stuff like that. And I don't want that to happen, because that's what the terrorists want. They want to divide and conquer. They want people to stop caring about each other, to be afraid of each other, to start excluding each other, because that's when they won. That's when they can get more recruits. That's when wars happen. So I'm happy to say that I think most people actually got together and helped each other out, just like they did in Stockholm when the last horrible terror attack happened there. So the police did a good job. The police is everywhere here now in Spain, and every kind of junction you see around the coast, everywhere. They're working around the clock. They're doing a fantastic job, and I hope they can keep everyone safe. Right, more questions. I see there's more questions coming up in the super chat. Great to see you guys. Thank you very much for supporting. Do you always fly the same exact aircraft every day? No, we don't. My company has a fleet of almost 400, or it's more than 400 aircraft at the moment. Those 400 aircraft has to be rotated through to do their maintenance check. Now, the maintenance centers are only in a couple of our bases. We do have maintenance personnel in other places, but you do have to have these bigger inspections done, which means that the aircraft are constantly rotating. So we don't even have the same aircraft in the same base for more than a couple of weeks. So I will fly every single aircraft. I think during my time in my company, I've been here for 15 years, I've probably flown all of them. So, and it doesn't matter. That's one of the good things with the type ratings, that you get trained on a specific aircraft type. All of the individuals in the same fleet are exactly identical, with some just small differences, maybe in avionics and stuff like that. But they're all the same. You can sit in one, and we often do aircraft changes, which, by the way, is a little bit weird. It feels weird in the beginning, as in you fly with one aircraft into one place, and then they tell you, well, you're gonna have to jump, go to the other aircraft that's over there. So you just take your flight bag, take your headset, make sure that you don't forget your coat and your stuff, and you take the crew, and you just move the crew from one aircraft to the other aircraft, start all over, and and when you take off, it's just like you're sitting in the same aircraft again, because they're so alike. I hope that answers your question. Right, I'll take some more questions from the Mentour Aviation app here. There's a great community in the app, by the way. In the chats, there's always people talking. There's people that are experienced on the Airbus. Ava, I hope you're here. Thank you very much. Ava is one of our American former Airbus pilots. Now she's flying business jets, but she is always active in there and willing to answer questions about how it is to fly in America. So if you're an American pilot and you want to know a little bit about either flying commercially or flying business jets, then Ava is going to be there. It's me, it's Annie Fluff, it's Teddy Sonswang, is a 737 first officer, and there's loads of aviation enthusiasts, of people in school and stuff, and they're always talking about different items. I'm in there as well, answering questions. It's a great community. So let's see, more questions here in the aviation chat then. So, Mentor, do you agree the involvement of politics into commercial aviation, e.g. the ban of the Qatari flights to overfly the Gulf countries? Now, I am just a pilot. I'm not going to go into the politics. Normally, politics has nothing to do with aviation as such, but it has everything to do with big politics, like the Gulf crisis that's happening now. For Qatar Airlines as such. I'm not gonna say either to or from, because I don't have the facts. They're claiming, both sides are claiming that the other side is funding terrorists. It's probably a lot that we don't know about it. So it's just an unfortunate event. It's just unfortunate for the people that are being caught in the crossfire. In this case, it's Qatari Airlines that gets caught in the crossfire. They just want to give a good service. They were recently announced as the best airline in the world in Paris, on Paris Air Show, and they are now being, basically, they could potentially be shut down because of this. If this goes on for long and they have to do really long reroutes, that is not going to be financially viable for very long. So for me, it's just sad to see when these things happen. Whether or not there is some real politics, behind it, as there's some real safety politics behind it, I don't know, and I'm not going to talk about that. I do feel sorry for everyone involved, though. Mentor, did you watch the EasyJet Inside the Cockpit on ITV, or is it not on in your country? No, I haven't seen it, but it's out on YouTube. I haven't looked at it yet. It seems to be getting quite a lot of buzz, which is fun, I hope that drives a little bit more people in to watch my channel as well. But yeah, I know it's a great initiative. It's what I do as well. You guys want to see what's going on inside of the cockpit. Now, I can't show you that yet, because I don't have the permission to film inside of the cockpit when we're moving. But I'm hoping to do that as well. So if they've gotten EasyJet to agree to that, it's great. Like, the more you learn, the better it is for everyone. What is the best way to become a commercial pilot, from that Asian dude? Have you seen the video, how to become an airline, how to become a pilot? I've done a video about that, where I talk about the modular route, the integrated route, the MPL route, all of these things that exist. So rather than me explaining that all over again, go and check that out, because what's good for you might not be good for LS Moto or It's Davy. We're all different when it comes to our financial means and where we are geographically and stuff like that. So you're gonna have to figure that out. Daniel, man, thank you very much. That is a fantastic support to the channel. Thank you very much. Congratulations on 70k subscribers. Your videos and your app is incredibly inspiring and always very informative and fun. Today, I would love to know what inspired you to become a pilot. Yeah, Daniel, for that kind of support, I could sit and tell that to you privately. But since you're asking, I was involved. It was my dad. That, as in with so many things, when you're young, you're being inspired by your parents. And my dad took a private pilot license in order to work and fly. He was an executive in an insurance company in northern Sweden, and there was loads and loads of driving he had to do every week. So he thought getting a PPL would be a good idea, to, on good weather days, being able to fly instead, which he did. Which meant that I obviously followed him up. I saw when he was training to become a pilot. I followed him, did some, learned to do some navigation. Helped him out, and when I was flying with him, obviously, he could give me the controls, and I was doing a bit of flying and stuff. But what actually kind of was a spark that got this fire flaming was when they realized that I had a real interest for this, and they gave me a test lesson for my 14th birthday. And that was in a crisp, clear autumn day, fantastic weather, not a wisp in the air. We took off with a Cessna 172, India Fox Bravo, I think it's called, or India Fox Lima maybe. Anyway, we took off, me and the instructor pilot, and flew out over my home city, then back up to my hometown or my home village in northern Sweden. There's G airspace there, so you can do whatever you want. So we flew down 500 feet over my house, checked out all my neighborhood, and then we flew back after about an hour, and I got to land the aircraft myself with instruction from the instructor, because he knew that I had some previous knowledge about it. So he just told me, all right, so reduce a bit of thrust, take some flaps, do this and this and that. And that was it. After that, I was done. There was nothing else that I wanted to do. So that's when I decided that this is what I'm going to do with my life. So I needed to find out, which is what I'm telling all of you guys to do as well. If you're young and you're watching this, is to get a clear picture of what it is that's needed. If it's money, if it's grades, all of that, then start working on it. So I started working on when I was 14, which meant that I went from an average student to a full, I had full grades, as in I had all highest grade in every single subject when I finished my first year of gymnasium, because I knew that was what was needed in order to get called to an interview for the government-sponsored program, which I then managed to get into. It wasn't easy, and I definitely wasn't the best one there, but I managed to squeeze in. And then obviously that gave me the training, then gave me the opportunity to search for this job that I've now got. So it's all about your determination and your goals and everything. So Daniel, I hope that answers your question. And feel free to contact me via Facebook later on, and we can have a chat about it if you want. Geo 1711. How do you know your PA volume? Some are very low. Yeah, unfortunately that's preset. It's nothing we can do from the cockpit. So there is the flight attendants tends to have a station where they can regulate the volume, the output volume a little bit, but we can't change it from the cockpit. It's just a preset level. We take it up, we speak. The problem tends not to be the volume though. The problem tends to be people speaking too far from the mic and not really caring about what they're saying. This is, I made a video about how to make PAs. Check that out. Where I talked about this, you have to put the mic on your chin. It has to touch your chin. So you have to be very, very close to it like this when you're speaking, because otherwise people will just not hear you. And you have to speak slowly, clearly, and tell people something that they want to know. You have to think through what the PA is going to be before you make it. Damien, what does ATC privatization mean for the US? Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't even think that Donald Trump knows what that means, as with many other things. The privatization can be a good thing. It tends to hit hard towards smaller places where the private companies might not be as interested in providing the air traffic control service that is needed. I don't know how it's going to work in the US. I'm not read up on this. Private companies tend to be more effective, but also tend to care a little bit less about the common good, more about lining their own pockets. So it's very hard to say. I don't have a good answer to that, unfortunately. I'm sure that will play out when we know what the rules are going to be. Mentour Pilot, have you met any of your fans or pilots that are your fans? Yes, I have actually. They're starting to pop up all of the everywhere now. When I'm going to do my sim weeks, that was quite funny actually last time. And if you're watching now, that was for me. It was an interesting thing when I went and bought my food last time. The girl that was working in the shop where I bought my food that I wanted to bring to the simulator, she had actually been watching the live stream last time together with her boyfriend that is watching the channel, and that was great because she asked me to to say hello to him and stuff. These things I love talking to you guys when I see you. Quite a few obviously of my first officers that's coming up for training now have been following the channel for years. So the more and more of the pilots that I am flying with, that I'm teaching, that have been following the channel, which of course puts a little bit of pressure on me because I'm sitting here telling people what to do and what to think about, but I'm not a perfect pilot by any means. I do make mistakes. And of course, if you're coming up and you've been getting a certain picture of me here on the channel, and then you fly with me and you realize that this guy, that he makes mistakes just like everyone else. So don't be disappointed if you end up flying with me and I end up messing up a call or whatever it might be, because that I've never said that I am perfect, guys. I am just a pilot like anyone else. The only difference between me and all the other pilots is that I'm sitting here talking to you and not, chilling, doing something else. What was your last flight? Oh, great question. What was my last flight? It was a while ago now. I flew to Poznan in Poland. I went to Poznan and back. And before that, I went to Wrocław in Poland and back. Great airports, by the way. If you're working for a Polish airport like Poznan and Wrocław, good job. We really enjoy flying there because everything is so well organized. It's just working like a clockwork. It's great. Great service, great turnaround management, nice people. It's fantastic. Has learning to fly affected how you drive a car in any way? Yeah, it has, funnily enough. I conserve more energy when I drive. I disconnect the gear in when I go downhill, for example. If I see that there's a red light far ahead, I'm going to stop. Keep the accelerator off. I will let it go on freewheel basically in order to not use up any extra gas and stuff like that, which is something I just do. You don't think about it, but you just do it because that's how you fly. You try to conserve energy and not use brakes if not needed and stuff like that. So yeah, it does affect a little bit of the driving style. I actually haven't even thought of that. It's a good question. Least good airport. I used to fly to Toulon in France. That is probably the worst airport I've flown to. Not in terms of the people working there or the place, just because nothing was working, as in we had reciprocal circling, so you fly in from one direction and you have to circle, not a circle 180 degree, but a circle is about 90 degrees, like to a reciprocal runway. And loads of small helicopters, loads of private aircraft, no controlling. The air traffic control did not speak much English. That was a few years ago. That might have changed by now, but that was probably, you go in there with a bit of a knot in your stomach because you never know what's going to happen, and that's not a nice feeling. What we like as pilots are straightforward places where the ATC is good, where everyone speaks English, where you know where everyone is. The easier the better. That's how we did. We don't like challenges. They're fun when they happen, but we like good, well-organized places like Malta or these airports that I just mentioned in Poland. Where do you go for an aptitude test? Oh, great question. I am actually talking to an English firm right now. These couple of days, I'm going to be trying to figure out how I can get some aptitude tests to you guys. It's probably going to be through the Mentour Aviation app, so make sure that you have that app if you're interested in that. There might be some other way of getting it as well, but I'm going to figure out a way to get you guys into getting these kind of aptitude testings before you start joining. Anyway, if you want a proper aptitude test done, then I recommend a company called Interpersona. Just Google Interpersona in Sweden. They do cost a lot of money. They cost like 700 euros, I think, one of those aptitude tests. But I'm saying this now, and I really mean what I'm saying. If your school that you're attending does not give you an aptitude test as part of you joining that school, okay? If that's the case, then you need to get one of these aptitude tests before you start paying money. And I cannot overemphasize this. This is really important. The school should give this to you, okay? They should really give this to you because it is important. And if they don't, go to a place like Interpersona, do an aptitude test yourself, because the only thing sadder than, failing one of those aptitude tests is not taking one, doing the training for 100,000 euros, and then failing one. All right? I cannot overemphasize this. This is probably, if I say one thing that's really important, this is it, right? Get the aptitude test, the pilot aptitude test done before you start your training, because you will have to do it as part of your entry exam into an airline. There are very few airlines that doesn't give you some sort of aptitude test, or at least pushed you, you know, put you in a simulator session where you're being pushed to your limits. And if you haven't got it in you, and I'm not saying that if you fail an aptitude test that you can't be a pilot, because you can work on all of these things, but you need to know that before you start training, because you can be trained to learn how to fly an aircraft without having the skills needed, the skill sets needed to fly a commercial airline. Okay, you can fly a Cessna without having what you need in order to become a commercial pilot. The only way to really know that is to do one of these tests. They won't be 100% accurate, but they will tell you things like, no, you definitely shouldn't. And then it could be there's a large group that's like, yeah, if you work a little bit on this, it should be fine. And then there's a group that's like, yeah, I don't know, you have all of the like the skills needed in order to do this. So, but you want to make sure is that you don't get told in the beginning that this is not for you. You know, maybe you have something in you that you haven't noticed yet. That if you're being tested, like pressed into a corner, that your response is to shut down. Some people I have seen do this, as in their eyes just glance over and they stop working. As the pressure builds, they just freeze, work less and less. And if that is how your body is wired, how your brain is wired, some people are wired like this, it's going to be very, very hard to get into this line of business. And this is why the aptitude tests are there, and this is why serious flight schools do these aptitude tests before you join. All right, because they don't want you to end up in that situation either. So do that, okay? Do you think, so once again, and now there's more questions coming up in the super chat all the time here. Ulsok first. How is the job opportunity straight out of flight school in Norway? At the moment, they're good. Norwegian Air Shuttle is hiring, Ryanair is hiring, EasyJet is hiring, all of the other, I think SES might be hiring still, I don't know about Widerøe, I haven't heard about them for a while, but all of these low-fare airlines are hiring. Now, of course, that normally comes with you having to buy a type rating as well, so you have to kind of budget for that. But if you've gone through the Tromsø flight school, I think they're called, the government-sponsored in Norway, you have saved up your training cost there. So check for the government-sponsored program, and at the moment it looks very good. You know, at the moment it looks very good in Europe as a whole. That might change depending on what Donald Trump might do, or what happens in North Korea, or what happens in the Gulf, or things like that. But we can't work on that. We have to work on what we have. And what we have right now is that a lot of aircraft are on order. Ryanair has hundreds of aircraft of order. I think they are going to be recruiting about 800 pilots a year for the upcoming 5 or 6 years. The same goes for Norwegian. Norwegian long haul is taking in pilots as well, and that's all sucking up pilots from underneath. So at the moment it's looking very, very good. Edward Cameron. Edward, you're on fire as always. Do you think it's important to get female pilots? Yes, I do. I do think it's important to get female pilots in. The reason being that female pilots are normally very good. They are very good at things that we male pilots think that we are better at. They have good capacity to do many, many things, like simultaneous capacity to do things at once, and they have a calming effect on like heated situations. And they're just as skilled as the guys are. So at the moment, it's about 5% of the workforce that are female, which is a shame. It should be much more. So I hope that during the coming years, the work of pilots like Pilot Maria the Pilot, there are like many quite prominent bloggers as well that are working on it. I think there is a group that is actually working on female pilot. I can't remember the name now, but it's like Aviatrix or something like that. That's working on informing female girls that they can become airline pilots. You know, a lot of girls doesn't even think it as an option, which is the reason why there's only 5%. I can see it on my YouTube channel as well. When I check at my statistics, I have 5% female viewers, 95% male. And that is reflecting the rest of the business, and it should change, you know. Girls can be pilots. You should be pilots. There should be more of them. We have loads of great female captains in my company. Female first officers, I fly with them quite often. Annie Fluff, which if you look at Instagram, you can find her there, and you can see her talk to her in the Mentour Aviation app as well, is one of them. And Maria the Pilot, obviously. which I have some contact with. You know, they all do a fantastic job. So yeah, there should be more girls. Can you be a pilot with Tourette's? Good question. Depending on how bad it is, you know, because communication is really important, and your communication under pressure is very important. So if you have problems communicating under pressure, it's going to be a problem. All right. But once again, these kind of things are good to ask the flight doctor. Hi Peter, have you ever had an emergency? Yeah, I have had flap problems where the flaps wouldn't come out. I've had minor technical problems, but mostly there's been medical emergencies, people with heart attacks and stuff like that, which is considered an emergency. It has nothing to do with the aircraft. The aircraft are extremely robustly built. Very rare to have any serious issues with it. Any small issues, which is what tends to precede bigger issues, are being dealt with by our maintenance department almost immediately. So it's very rare for anything like that to happen. Right, guys, I'm actually running out of internet, believe it or not. I have 20 gigabytes that I can go with, and I'm at 19 and a half now. So I am going to have to round it off here, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this live stream so far. I have enjoyed it. I think it's been fantastic. Thank you all of you who have been helping out and supporting the channel through the super chat, and all of you who's been sending in messages via the Mentour Aviation app. One last thing, guys, and I don't know if you guys would be interested in this or not. I'm thinking about doing a fundraiser, as in a Kickstarter with my Mentour Aviation app. I have built it so far and I have financed it so far, but there's loads of stuff that I would like to do in the Mentour Aviation app, including things like you being able to post pictures, you being able to like direct message each other, like a social media app basically, and some more stuff. So would you guys be interested in helping out in case I do a Kickstarter, maybe with 10 euros or something like that? Because if I can get 10,000 euros into this, I can actually rebuild all of those things. But this is approximately what it costs. It will cost me 10 to 15,000 euros to rebuild the app from what it is now, which is a great app, into something that is spectacular. You know, one of those apps that would be you know, the equivalent of Facebook for aviators. That's what I would like to do. I would like to get this, you know, all of people who are interested in aviation should be inside of the Mentour Aviation app. Okay, this is the way it looks now. All of you should be in there. So if you guys would be interested, I will do a Kickstarter and see if we can raise that money and get my developers working on it. So I will, if I get enough people to vote it up. I might actually do that on Facebook. I might do a question if you guys would be interested in it, and see how many yeses I can get. And depending on that, I might start off the Kickstarter and get this thing happening. So until then, have an absolutely fantastic evening. Watch the video coming up on Thursdays. I will continue to put out videos on Thursdays. And maybe sometimes I'll put out these kind of little extra things that I did this Saturday as well. Funny things that I get questions about that, you know, might be not as serious, but you guys might laugh and want to hear anyway. So have a fantastic day, guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.